Americans. This is the Global News. We're going to talk about what has been recorded the most expensive earthquake in history, the recent accident at Oshika Peninsula in Tohoku, Japan. It happened around 2:45 p.m. with an enormous record-breaking magnitude of 9.1 in the Richter scale. The environment and buildings surrounding the area of main impact were damaged because of the earthquake's unexpected magnitude. The earthquake resulted in massive tsunami that flooded the coast of Tohoku. With Japan being surrounded by mostly ocean and seafood exportation has been the country's main economic activity for centuries, the secondary impact affected Japan's economy, the civilians' financial position, and the death of marine life. Boats, canoes, and these dead sea animals were found around the city, causing enormous damage to infrastructure, mainly the sewage. Now, Matilda, our seismologist, would like to cover more of the topic, scientific facts.
Yes, thank you very much, Sophia, for having me. I'm here at the Tohoku Islands right after the destruction, and I'm here reporting on what caused this massive earthquake to have happened. See, the Tohoku earthquake was caused by what is known as a destructive plate boundary. This occurs when the oceanic and continental plates move towards each other. As the oceanic plate is denser, it is forced under the lighter continental plate, creating friction, often triggering earthquakes. In the case of the Tohoku earthquake, the crust of the western Pacific plate is being subducted beneath the Eurasian plate, which is located right under the southern part of Japan. The friction resulted into a massive earthquake at 9.1 on the Richter scale. The Tohoku earthquake is the fourth largest seismic event ever recorded, outranked only by the 2004 Indonesian and 1964 Alaskan earthquakes, both at a 9.2 on the Richter scale, and the enormous but less well-known 1960s Chilean earthquake, a 9.5 event. The Tohoku earthquake came as a bit of a surprise. As the tectonic movements near Japan are expected, the magnitude of this earthquake was not. According to the conventional seismology, the characteristic earthquake near Tohoku was considered to be in a lower magnitude 8 range. Japan's civil defense strategies, including tsunami walls, were designed in accordance with that view. As it turned out, though the Tohoku earthquake wasn't characteristic, the tectonic movement near Tohoku was uncharacteristically shallow, which previously was not considered to likely result in a very large earthquake. The combination of large and shallow slips in the plates turned out to be deadly. Most seismologists now agree that Tohoku should be considered a composite event. What started as a large but otherwise unremarkable earthquake unleashed a chain of reaction of secondary effects and morphed into a monster. The geological effects were numerous. More than 5,000 aftershocks hit Japan in the year after the earthquake, the largest magnitude 7.9. The Pacific plate slid westward near the epicenter by 24 meters. And even more shocking, the earthquake shifted Earth on its axis of rotation by distributing mass. The trembler shortened the length of a day by about a microsecond. The subduction near Tohoku not only resulted into a massive earthquake, but also into a deadly tsunami with waves up to 40.5 meters in height. The effects of the tsunami were felt worldwide. For example, it broke icebergs of Salzburg ice shelf in Antarctica. It killed more than 110,000 nesting seabirds in Hawaii, and the seismic waves were felt as far as Norway. Yes, thank you very much for having me. Next up, we have Maju here to report the impacts it had on Japan.
Thank you. Just for you all to understand the magnitude of this earthquake, residents 12 miles away from the Fukushima nuclear power station, which is located 473 kilometers away from Tohoku, were forced to evacuate. Due to this tragedy, 28 international organizations offered to help, as well as 116 countries like China, US, and Australia were asked to help by the Japanese government. China, for example, sent out $167,000 in aid and 15 member teams to Japan as personnel. The Prime Minister of Japan, Naoto, ordered to set up an emergency command center in Tokyo, as well as 100,000 members of the Japanese Defense Force to mobilize the situation. Surviving victims laid stranded. Several 100,000 civilians were in shelters with limited resources if they were the ones that had already been rescued, and 28,000 lives were unfortunately lost. No state of emergency was declared by Naoto, which is when the living conditions are so poor that they are declared as critical. Going back to what Sophia said of this being the world's most expensive earthquake, early estimates show that insured losses due to the disaster are between 14.5 to 34.6 billion US dollars. The Bank of Japan has offered 183 billion US dollars to the banking system of the country to try to normalize the market conditions. Due to the harsh weather, workers have found it really hard to send personnel and resources to affected areas. Residents have already sent complaints arguing that the government has not been acting quick enough and are worried for their fellow civilians. Back to you, Sophia. Thank you.
Thank you, Maju. Now we're going to pass to a victim that survived the recent earthquake. She's going to talk about more her experience.
Where were you when this disaster struck?
I was at work, so I was able to hide underneath a desk during the earthquake, but I was near a window and the window shattered and a few of the pieces of glass cut me. But besides that, I was fine, and I was really lucky to be at work because there were many people who were out in the streets or in places which weren't as safe, and they were really badly injured, and some of them were even killed.
As Mayu was at work, she was able to protect herself from the damage of the earthquake and managed to find safe ground on the rooftop, protecting herself from the tsunami. How are you feeling after everything you've been through?
Obviously I feel really sad, and because it's heartbreaking, many people are injured and everything. People were in the streets, but also I feel really lucky because, I was safe and stuff, and I didn't, and sure, my house got ruined, but I still have a source of income. I have many people who where they were working, they ended up losing their job because they were self-employed. So the space for which they worked with was ruined. I had a friend that she owned a restaurant, and it got completely ruined by the earthquake. So now she doesn't have a source of income. She's probably gonna rely on the help of the government before she gets up on her feet. But it's gonna take a while for that. So yeah, but I feel really lucky because I wasn't that injured. So. Yeah.
What are your future plans?
I'm my personally on building, rebuilding my house and that kind of stuff. I don't really know. It's really hard to predict at the moment. But my very immediate future, I'm helping with search and rescue, and I'm trying my best to help the community in this really difficult time as much as I can, and not only I am, a lot of people that I know are also helping out. And I suggest that if you guys have the opportunity to help, to donate, or if you can come and volunteer, help out, because it's a really difficult time right now.
Search and rescue are various teams which go and help people who are physically damaged by the earthquake, usually by getting them out of under large pieces of rubble. How has search and rescue been so far?
It's been tough, definitely. We luckily were able to save many lives. We weren't able to save everybody, but we're trying to save as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, because after it's still pretty soon, but in a couple of days it's gonna get harder and harder to find people alive, especially because humans are not able to stay that long under rubble. So yeah, we're trying to save as many people as quickly as possible, but so far it has mostly been a success. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mayu.